welcome to a special edition of Access Sportsnet Lakers. I'm Allie Clifton, joined by our Lakers reporter Mike Trudell, our Laker insider Mike Bresnahan. The entire 82-game regular season schedule has been released. Let's dive in as we take a look at some of the highlights for the newly released schedule for the Lake Show. October 19th, opening night, the Lakers welcome Steph Curry and the Warriors into town. Christmas Day, it's a battle of big threes in LA between the Nets and Lakers. Another marquee game in the NBA on MLK Day as the Lakers welcome in the Jazz. Then a few weeks later on February 8th, Giannis and the NBA champs come to Staples Center for the only time on the year. Then the regular season finale against the Nuggets on April 10th. Brez, your favorite team outside of the Lakers, of course, the Bucks. Champs, February 8th. Definitely one to mark on that calendar.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, hey, if you're the Lakers, if you want to be the best, you got to beat the best. And you're talking about the defending champs coming to Staples Center. Going to be an exciting night for sure. Who knows? Maybe at that time, we're talking February at this point. Maybe LeBron and Giannis are some of the front runners for MVP. Maybe the teams are maybe battling for a best record in the league at that point. The Nets might have a little something to say about that, but still, definitely going to be an exciting two games there. You got the first one at Milwaukee on February 8th when they come out here. Can't wait to see what the Bucks and Lakers look like at that point in the season in particular. February 8th, Mike, not too far from the trade deadline as well, just right around the corner after that game.
Mike Trudell, speaking of the Nets, the last time LeBron and KD faced off, you know the date.
Christmas, yeah.
3
years ago.
Yeah, and you knew the NBA was going to get that one back on the schedule.
Yeah, I mean, as if we needed any more excitement going into that Christmas game. You also have the fact that LeBron and KD swapped point guards. So one of them now has Russell Westbrook, the other one has Kyrie Irving, and just all of the star power in that game, that's going to be amazing. And like when you showed that graphic there aren't many games for the whole season that I'm not excited about, honestly. Like, the NBA is at such a great point with talent right now, and coming into the season, we all have the optimism of almost all of the stars are healthy. The one thing, of course, Klay Thompson probably is going to play in that opener. That's a bummer as he still gets over the Achilles, but Golden State still has plenty there. And Allie, there it is, boom, right there, like season opening game. Let's go, right from the start at Staples Center. And Russell Westbrook, who's going to, if you guys have, of course, seen his pregame routine, but he's going to be sprinting over into a corner, pounding his chest for people from his city, right?
Yep.
Where he's like, and even that part to me is uber exciting.
And you're going to be back on the sidelines, down actually on the floor, right?
Yeah, that's the plan.
How close are you going to try and get to that?
Maybe a little bit of something for the IG on the side.
Yeah,
you know?
100%.
But mostly just excited to see that happen, and I'll be standing over in the little corner there. Hey, you know what? You guys should do the show though from Staples Center.
Ooh, I like that. Let's make it happen.
Let's take a look at some of the Laker matchups against West contenders. We're going to start on the West first. Suns, Jazz, Clippers, Warriors. You just mentioned it. Klay Thompson, right?
Yeah, hopefully.
Christmas Day they're shooting for with him.
Yeah, if not a little bit earlier, but his dad, Michael, said that his rehab is going great, but definitely by that February date, right? You would expect to see Klay back.
For sure.
I'm excited to see how he looks.
Nonetheless, Suns are in town, second game of the season. Bryce, you got to give the fans what they want.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, the schedule makers, I like what they did with Golden State. They really are the second choice as far as teams that could win the West behind the Lakers. Right up there with them, the Phoenix Suns. I mean, Laker fans no doubt will let their minds drift going into that game. What if Anthony Davis had stayed healthy?
Spoiler, they would have won, Brez.
They would have won. Yeah. And, up 2-1 at the time and looking pretty good in Game 4 here at Staples. And we all know the rest of that history. So, good young team in Phoenix. Added bonus, Mike, JaVale McGee now on the Suns. So he'll be coming to Staples Center very early in the year. So nice little rematch. Almost right out the top, Allie.
Jazz, let's not forget, every time it comes to the playoffs, it's just not a great reflection of what we see during the regular season because they were at the top of the West as well.
Yeah, they have a really nice formula for regular season wins, right? The interior defense, the way that they move the ball in offense, but you can lock in on that in a playoff series, so we've seen that year after year, and that's why for me it's hard to take Utah that seriously as a real contender, but in the regular season, they're going to be a tough team to beat. Mitchell still has some upside, like he can still take another step, I think, but the rest of the roster is pretty much guys that have realized where they are. You know, right. Mike Conley, Rudy Gobert, Bogdanovich, Joe Ingles, these are all vets who haven't necessarily continued to get better at that stage of their career. So I see that as it's a tough game, especially in Utah. They only lost 5 home games last year, best home record in the league. But it's not a team, Brez, that I see as much of a threat in terms of winning the overall West as the team you mentioned, like a Golden State, maybe even a Phoenix, maybe Denver, if Jamal Murray can get back in time. So those kind of things. But yeah, like regular season, tough to beat.
It's tough to beat. Heading east, let's go to the Eastern Conference. Here's a breakdown of when the Lakers will face the best out of the East. Obviously, Nets, Bucks, the Heat.
Don't forget them.
Philadelphia, the Heat have a big 3 of their own. You got Jimmy, you got Bam, and now the addition of Kyle Lowry, Brez.
Yeah, I really like this team. In fact, Allie, you were not here yesterday, but I kind of picked them to be the biggest threat in the East to the Nets, not the Bucks. So kind of going against what you might have thought. I like what Miami did during the offseason. You extend Jimmy Butler, make sure he's around for a while. You bring in Kyle Lowry. To me, probably my favorite move of all the Eastern Conference teams during the offseason. I think he's still got some gas in that tank for sure. Picked up PJ Tucker a couple weeks after he won the title with Milwaukee. Victor Oladipo, only $2.5 million. They got him for veterans min. Obviously, he's gonna be hurt for probably the first part of the season, coming off that injury, and he has the injury history. We know that. Really like their moves. The only one, Mike, Duncan Robinson, $90 million for 5 years. That might be a little high, but definitely one of the top 2 or 3 shooters in the entire NBA. I like the roster, period.
I like the call on Miami, and a term that I've been using a lot this offseason is the bubble tax, and I feel like that hit Miami in addition to the Lakers. Having just 60 days between October 11th, Game 6 of the Finals, and the start of the preseason, well, now you get 120, and because they also lost in the first round. So they're going to be rested. They're going to be mentally prepared. Their guys have actually had a chance to physically rehabilitate themselves and get ready for the season. So I think that gives a boost to the Heat just like it will to the Lakers.
Double tax.
Both of those games being played before the All-Star break. So we're going to see those matchups early and often. Let's take a look at the first 2 months of the Lakers calendar in October and November. You got 7 games in October with the Lakers opening up against the Warriors and closing the month against Houston. November, a busy month for LA. 16 games with highlights including the Trailblazers on November 6th, the Heat on the 10th, followed by a 5-game road trip that begins on the 17th in Milwaukee, followed by Boston. 14 of 23 games to start the year are at home. Stick with us. We'll be right back. Release show in December. The Lakers will play 14 games, 7 on the road, 7 at home, including Christmas Day against the Nets and New Year's Eve against the Blazers. In January, the Lakers have another 14 games scheduled, 6 at Staples Center and 8 away contests. That includes the Grammy trip at the end of the month. Now we take a dive into a little schedule breakdown. The Lakers have 12 back-to-backs next season with 6 on the road. The All-Star break takes place on February 18th and runs through the 23rd. Lakers will actually get 2 more days on their break between games, 8 off days total. They have 2 5-game homestands on the year, both in the first half of the season, longest road trip of the year. For the Lakers is 6 games beginning on January 21st against the Magic and ending in Atlanta on January 30th. So the Lakers' longest road trip, Brez, of the season, 6 games in 10 days, the annual Grammy road trip. Heavy hitters in the East on that one. You've got Miami, Brooklyn, Philly, and Atlanta.
Yeah, no doubt. You know, it's funny. It's always one of the first things I look for when the schedule comes out. Of course, you look at the opening night game and the Christmas game because you know everyone will be watching those two. I always want to see how long that Grammy trip is going to be and who's going to be on it. The Lakers, they'll know exactly where they are as a team in late January when they play, who is it, Miami, Brooklyn, Philly, 3 games in a row. It's not even spread out that much on that trip. You got 3 tough ones away from home, all going to be getting a lot of national exposure. So we'll see exactly where they are, in particular, on this Grammy trip. But I know, Mike, you always talk about the Grammy trip. We all do. Hey, it's a chance for the team to bond and that type of thing. But they're going to have to win some games. And, yeah, don't overlook Atlanta and Trae Young either. That guy's pretty good right there.
Remember Phil Jackson, what I was talking about the Grammy trip, too. Like a good time to just see where you're at in the season and see what the record was going to be. So, Allie, I had a different thing that just stood out in general about the schedule. And you mentioned the home just in terms of October plus November. But how about 12 of the first 15 games are at Staples Center? And of those 12 home games, only 3 are against teams that were in the playoffs last year. Now, I think we could put Golden State into that mix as well as a team that we expect are going to be a contender. But even if you just say 4, that to me is big for a Lakers team that is so new that cohesion is going to take some time to come. So how about some more home games against teams that aren't as good, at least in terms of winning percentage on the schedule, just to try to fatten up a little bit. And then later in the season, you never exactly know what you're going to see with teams. So in other words, I'd rather play those teams early than late, because sometimes the teams that are a little better later in the season, maybe they're just making sure they have guys healthy for the postseason, whatever. And that to me is important for the Lakers to have an extra chance to get off to a good start.
Because I know that you do the schedule breakdown every year. You wrote an article, you released it this morning. What else stood out to you?
I mean, so the balance of the schedule is something, it's always going to come around. So March, right, you sort of pay the piper a little bit for having the home schedule early. But that, just to that previous point, I don't think that ends up hurting as much. I'd rather have it be that way than have a new team going on a lot of those tough testing type road games early on in the season. So that is one thing that's important. And then just the fact that you get the 8 days that you mentioned for the All-Star break, for a veteran team, for LeBron especially to have a chance, although I don't worry about LeBron, frankly. But
we don't need to worry now.
I mean, yeah, Wash King, right? Like, he's got all that stuff covered. But that to me is a thing that's important, right? Because they can kind of go hard towards that point, knowing they're going to get a full 8 days. And even like the little thing, like a day around the break, that's huge. That's huge for us.
And you also know that there is an All-Star game this year. And so guys know that they will be a part of it. And still there is some opportunity to rest within that. A lot of roster turnover from last season moving on. So a lot of familiar faces in new places next year. Fan favorite Alex Caruso. He's in Chicago. The first time they will play him in the new look Bulls is at home on November 15th. Dennis Schroeder is now in Boston. First time the Lakers will see Dennis is on November 19th in Boston and at home on December 7th. New Wizards, Kyle Kuzma, KCP, and Montrezl Harrell come into town on March 11th, and the Lakers play them in the nation's capital on March 19th. Which former Laker or Lakers are you most excited to see this season, Brez?
You know, obviously I'm a big fan of Kyle Kuzma, but I think Schroeder coming back to Staples Center on December 7th, as if the Celtics-Lakers game needs any more headlines.
You're here for the hype.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I'll be happy to see Kuz and KCP, what's going on, to see those guys, sure. But Schroeder, you know, obviously one of the biggest headlines during the offseason. This guy allegedly turned down $20+ million a year to stay with the Lakers several months ago. Signed for $6 million with the Celtics. I mean, that's a big drop in pay. He's going to come in with a chip on his shoulder, and I have a feeling that the Lakers are going to want to knock that chip off because A, it's Schroeder, and B, it's Boston.
I'm willing to bet that's not yours.
Well, Brez, I'm sorry to say it. The correct answer is Alex Caruso and the Chicago Bulls. And as a bonus, you get to see Lonzo in his new digs as well. But yeah, come on. This is about appreciating what Alex Caruso brought to the Lakers, including starting in that game I mentioned earlier, October 11th. It's not even been a calendar year.
I got the chills thinking of what that's going to be like.
Yeah, it hasn't even been that long since. And so now we're going to get a chance to see Caruso. And I think that, so Kuzma I would put close to this level, right? Also homegrown, taking number 27. Fans are going to really love having him back, appreciate what he did. But Caruso did just have this special relationship for what his story was, and, you know, undrafted, and summer league champion, and then they signed him to a two-way deal that he's on for 2 years, and then all of a sudden he's getting better and better and better, and LeBron loves playing with him, and the dunks and the defensive and the screens, and like all of that stuff I think is going to be a chance for Laker fans to show the appreciation for him, which I will be doing personally in Chicago. Yeah. But yes, when he comes to LA, Staples Center will get to show him the appreciation.
Are you going to pick him up at LAX when he lands?
I was going to ask if you were going to wear a Caruso jersey in Chicago.
I think, you know, it's a good question, Brez. I got to look at my schedule.
But you got to like what the Bulls did for sure. I mean, definitely picking up Caruso, a very good, tough two-way player. And I also like let's not forget the DeMar DeRozan pickup for them. I think they've really tried to improve their team. They already have
an expensive one, though, there.
It's not cheap.
DeRozan,
yeah, it's not cheap, no doubt about it. But you get the feeling that they want to kind of keep Zach LaVine happy. Let's not forget, you know, the trade they had towards the end of last season when they picked up Vucevic from Orlando. This is a good team. Can they beat a Miami or a Milwaukee or a Brooklyn? Probably not, but they'll definitely be back in the playoffs.
Like, Alex Caruso is supposed to be a part of the gender reveal of your last child.
We talked about it, right? Without COVID, like throw a little alley-oop, you know. But then I saw that on Instagram or something, so it seemed a little played out. But I thought about it.
Basically, I'm just answering Brez's question for you. You will be at LAX. You will be picking him up.
Yeah, if he needs me, I'll be there.
As we go to break, a glance at February's schedule. Just 9 games in total, thanks to the All-Star break. 6 of the 9 games are at home. The 3 road games at Clippers, at Portland, and at Golden State. So very little travel for the Lakers. March, however, could be daunting.
Time there.
16 games in 31 days, just 5 of those are at home.
You need the bench depth for that month there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, go a little deeper into the rotation.
Has revealed the schedule for the upcoming season. Some rivalry matchups for the Lakers against the Celtics and Clippers. You see 4 against the Clips, 2 obviously home and home against Boston. Are the Clippers the Clippers? Obviously, we know what's going on with Kawhi. Changes things a bit. Have they lost a little bit of steam, Brez?
Yeah, no doubt. It's funny. I was thinking about who are going to be the top 8 teams in the West once it's all said and done. The Clippers might sneak in at like a 7 or an 8. You still got Paul George, obviously. Some other pretty good players. Terrence Mann. They got Reggie Jackson back. So there is some talent there. Can they win a round in the playoffs without their big guy? I don't think so.
No, I don't think anybody would be surprised if Kawhi Leonard just didn't play next year. Look, we're talking about ACL surgery, and this is a guy who's been out for long periods of time with injuries that aren't that severe.
Yep.
And then that's one thing. I do think the Clippers will be better than whatever the Vegas odds will be because it's a veteran team, right? People are going to look at the fact that Kawhi's out and I think underestimate some, but their ceiling is lower.
Yep.
And I also, by the way, wouldn't call them a rival just because the Lakers and Clippers have never, met in a postseason series.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, Boston, I certainly would.
Sure.
But yeah, so I see the Clippers as, like Brett said, fighting for a playoff spot, but I don't look at those dates, like I might against some of the teams we're probably going to get to and get excited about it. I think it's going to be a team, they'll be solid. They're not going to be easy to beat, but they're not a team that I think you list as a real contender without Kawhi.
All right, time to play a little game we call Rank 'em. Not really a game, but it's fun. Lakers calendar is set, and we're going to talk about the ones that you are most excited about. Starting with your number 3, Brez, you go first.
Well, you knew I had to put them in there somewhere. Lakers at Milwaukee. It's going to be earlier in the season.
I knew it was Milwaukee.
Just a few weeks in, we're going to see exact, but it'll be a fun matchup pretty early in the season.
Well, especially with Middleton and Holiday playing for Team USA after they went to the finals, for sure. But I like that matchup too, though, because of all the athleticism and all the guys that get to the rim.
I mean, Giannis continues to make moves, buying into the Brewers today.
How about that?
He continues to.
He's had a good year.
Yeah.
Shout out to Giannis. So I put the final game of the season, which is at Denver.
Oh.
Denver is intriguing to me. Like I think we already forget that they were the hottest team in basketball after the All-Star break once they got Aaron Gordon. And then Jamal Murray goes down with the ACL tear and essentially tanks their chances, which they could have gone to the finals, I think. Absolutely. I thought they were probably better than Phoenix at that point. So what does Jokic do to keep them afloat? What happened to the Lakers last year, like without LeBron and AD? Do they sink lower in the standings, or do they find a way to stay there until Jamal Murray gets back? So that's just intriguing to me, what Denver's going to be. Are they going to be a real contender for the Lakers? And that game could have real implications, even for Denver trying to get into a spot.
Well done, you sold me on that. Normally, I do not care about the last game of the regular season because I'm already on to the playoffs, but you sold me there. Brez, number 2.
Season opener. I mean, you got to put it in there. We'll see what the new look Lakers have to offer against Golden State at Staples Center. And what does Golden State look like? It will be a shame if indeed Clay is not part of it, which is sounding more and more, as you alluded to earlier, is going to be the case. But still, Steph coming off his massive contract extension, Draymond, always fun to watch those guys. And a lot of young guys now on the Warriors. 2 lottery picks this year. Weissman will potentially, assuming he's back to start the season. But what do they look like also at the end of the season? I have a feeling they have a big trade coming up. It'll be fun for sure to see them on opening night.
No, absolutely. I'm totally with you on that one. Just to switch it up, I went with the second game against Phoenix. And
I like it.
I just like the Lakers' chances here, even though it's an almost totally new team, save for LeBron and AD and THT and Marc Gasol. This is the team that beat them, and the Lakers certainly feel like they would have won. They were up 2-1 when Anthony Davis hurt the groin, despite all of the bubble tax implications that they suffered. So I think this is going to be the Lakers' chance to say, all right, hold on. You're not better than us just because you won the West. And Phoenix on the other side is going to say, no, we were going to beat you anyway.
Finals, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's what I'm saying. Like they feel both teams feel like they're better.
Yeah.
Right is the point. So let's see.
Yeah.
Right? Let's see.
I like that. Kind of actually forget about that. Brez, your number 1.
Well, I was going for a mid-February game in maybe Charlotte, something like that. But I'm kidding.
LaMelo, yeah, sure, yeah.
Very exciting. No, you got to go with Christmas. Brooklyn coming out to Staples Center. We talked about it a little bit earlier. This is, in so many people's minds, including my own, this is the finals matchup right here. You don't want to make the mistake of kind of saying, let's fast forward to June and just play the damn series. I feel like I did that in 2012-13. Lakers and Nets, because they had KG and Pierce back then. I said, let's just fast forward to June. Neither of those teams made it. So let's just say that this could be a very intriguing. Let's look at Christmas for now. Yeah, we'll worry about June later.
No, I mean, this is the correct answer. Like, sometimes the obvious answer is the correct one, right? We don't have to get too cute about it. And we talked about all of the player implications and things like that, and all of that is exciting. But just the sheer fact that these teams have the chance to match up in the finals, and we can't help it. Like, we're always going to look ahead.
Yeah.
Now, health is going to be a big issue, but what is most interesting to me about this matchup is the different styles. The Lakers are a force and power team. They're about athleticism. They're about getting to the rim, tearing it down. Brooklyn is more of a finesse team in terms of shooting, but they're tough too. Like, Blake Griffin came in and played really well last year. KD's a tough player, even if he doesn't get credit for it just because he got the soft jump shot. So I think those contrasting styles are maybe favor Brooklyn in a regular season matchup, but could favor the Lakers over the course of a series when they can kind of beat on the Nets repeatedly.
Health is the only thing, I might add.
That's it.
That will keep them from. That's it.
Yep.
Super important.
Access continues in a minute as we show the final 2 weeks of the regular season. 6 games are scheduled in April, 3 at home and then 3 on the road as they play the finale in Denver on April 10th. They'll face the Nuggets twice in the season's final 8 days, plus Phoenix and Golden State. Could make for some possible seeding implications down the stretch. We'll be right back. Take a look at the first 10 games of the season for the Lakers. Pretty favorable schedule if you're looking at wins and losses last year. 2 games against the Rockets and Thunder with the Grizzlies, Trailblazers, Cavs, all in the first 10.
Wow.
Prez, your estimated record for the first 10 for the Lakers is?
Tempting to say 9-1, maybe even 9-0 going into Portland. I'm going to drop it down a notch, just say 8-2. New team, 11 new faces potentially by the time they fill up the roster. I'll go 8-2.
Likes to play it safe.
They say you're not supposed to agree on stuff like this, but I was going to say 8-2. So the fact that you said 8-2, I'm not going to change it and say 9-1 or 7-3. So 8-2, and it won't be the games that you necessarily think.
Correct.
In that, as it ever is. But yeah, 8-2.
10-0. The Lakers are going to start the season 10 straight W's. That's what they do.